Hey guys, Thomas Busby here again with the second to last video in the what is the greatest wide angle lens available for the Fuji X mount. Today, for a bit of a change, I thought I'd film the whole episode in the lens I'm reviewing, which is the 14mm f2.8 from Fujifilm. Now, as always, I like to start these reviews off with looking at what I feel is the most important factor in any lens, which is the sharpness. On the Fuji 14mm f2.8, center sharpness is fantastic from about f2.8 up until about f7.1 to 8, after which it starts to fall off, which is very common for all the lenses. However, when it comes to corner sharpness, it hits its peak around that f7.1 to f9. And while the whole range from f2.8 to 11ish is great, at 7.1 might just be its perfect little sweet spot for the best center and corner sharpness for this lens. When it comes to the value of this lens, it's getting real close in price to the 16mm f1.4, which I think is a stunning lens and probably a better buy than the 14mm f2.8. And I'm not saying this is an expensive lens, in fact the opposite, but I'm saying if you're after a real cheap bargain lens, then the 14mm f2.8 isn't that. And if you're after a premium top-notch quality lens, then it's too close in price to the 16mm f1.4, which for that little bit extra is a far better lens. So it's, as far as price goes, it's in a bit of a tricky spot until you start considering its size and weight. See, for the relatively very small size of the 14mm, I can't show you it because I'm filming with it. It is a very sharp lens for how small it is. It is noticeably smaller than the 16mm f1.4 and is far closer in size to say the 15 to 45. Well, the 15 to 45 is my favorite bargain little cheap lens. Hold on. See, size and weight for some people isn't a big factor. A lot of people don't care about it, but for some people it's a lot. And the 14mm f2.8 is very similar in size to this, the 15 to 45, which is my favourite bargain lens to get. And it's quite a bit smaller than this, which is a 16mm f1.4. And for that size and weight, there is quite a lot of size and weight difference between these two when you're getting down to the nitty gritty. And to have the 16, well, very close to the 16mm f1.4's quality and sharpness, but at the 15 to 45 size and weight, and this is still a phenomenally sharp lens, the 14mm kind of does have that place if size and weight is an issue for you. Let's talk about some of the features. It is a 58mm lens cap or filter, which is a very common size. It has, like the 16mm, this focus clutch. This isn't the 14mm, this is the 16mm. But that's a great way of slipping back into manual focus, and you get the little hyperfocal calculator on the top of the lens, which is great for that nighttime, that trickier to measure hyperfocal focusing, or just distance indicating. And while I personally prefer to use the one that comes up on the back of the screen and you flick your camera over to manual, that's not always accurate, where the one on the lens is definitely far more accurate, and it's got its place. I prefer the screen one, but having it on the lens is still that nice option. But what is easily the biggest downside of the 14mm f2.8 is that it is not weather sealed. And when you see the scores come up at the end of this video, if weather sealing isn't a factor for you, if you don't care, then this is maybe the third best, I reckon, wide angle lens available from Fujifilm. It is phenomenal. But for so many situations, weather sealing is an important factor to consider for the durability, for the lifespan, for just the emotional trickiness of especially New Zealand weather when it comes to photography, especially landscape photography. And those wide angle lenses, while they've got a little bit of that landscape photographer biasness towards them, and not having weather sealed for a lot of photographers will definitely be a massive deal breaker for this lens, especially once again when you can get so many other options that are weather sealed, or if you want to go really cheap, you can get far cheaper lenses that are still pretty good without that weather sealing if you want it. So unfortunately, not being weather sealed loses some major points for the 14mm f2.8. When it comes to lens flaws and astronomical performance, Fujifilm doing that nice little f2.8 corner optimization, the 14mm actually gets a fantastic Astro score of 400, placing it in 4th place as far as Astro lenses go. Now, for those of you that have been following this series for a little while, you'll see that those Astro scores have all tweaked and changed just a little bit. Not to worry, it has been an exact same percentage change for every single lens, just as I've adjusted and tweaked my formula for working out how good they are for each lens. And like I said, it's changed each lens to the same percentage, so the positions and ranks haven't changed, but those numbers have a little bit. But not to worry, I am going to have an updated Astro lens performance video coming out very soon. And as always, for all of you that are just starting out in astronomical photography, feel free to head over to my website or my Instagram page, screenshot, download, share, whatever you need to do of this and any other lens you have, cheat sheet, which is a great recommended starting settings for when shooting astronomical Milky Way photography with any of the Fujifilm wide-angle lenses available. Onto video, the 14mm actually does real well, I reckon, for AF performances, especially considering the age of the lens. Nearly as good as a lot of the newer f2 and f2.8 lenses available from Fujifilm, but where this lens I guess starts to let down a little bit is it does make a little bit of noise while it's focusing. You're probably not going to be able to hear it in this video because I have an external microphone, but if you're using that on-camera sound, or if you're in a real quiet situation, like a lot of the older Fujifilm lenses, when it comes to video, you're going to hear it moving a little bit. Another flaw that pops up with quite a lot of the Fuji lenses, and the 14mm is no difference, is it does what's called lens breathing. And what lens breathing is the side of your shots move a little bit, kind of like you've just zoomed a smidge just as it autofocus. So say if I hold my hand up closer to the camera, you'll see the size of the shot just shimmer and zoom just a little bit, just as it adjusts its focus. You can see that little bit of a change. So it's smooth and accurate, but it has that little bit of a lens breathing to it, which isn't a biggie. You probably haven't noticed that for most of this video, but every once in a while, someone will be distracted by those corner elements, edge elements, just changing a little bit as you shift your focus. But like I said, that isn't unique to the Fuji 14mm. A lot of the Fuji lenses have it. It's just something to be aware of. And as far as sharpness goes, as far as AF performance goes, I think it's a great lens, and I definitely wouldn't be. But like I said, that lens breathing isn't a unique flaw to the 40mm. A lot of the Fujifilm lenses, maybe all of the Fujifilm lenses, have that. It's just something to be aware of. And that aside, it's still a phenomenal video lens. I'd be more than happy with it, especially considering how old it is. It's still very sharp and snappy. Before I tested the 16mm f1.4, I would have considered the 14mm f2.8 one of the best wide-angle lenses available from Fujifilm. It's light, it's sharp, it's pretty well priced, it ticks a lot of boxes. And if you already own this lens, I seriously wouldn't consider selling it to upgrade to another wide-angle option. It does a phenomenal job. Unless weather sealing is a concern for you, which I feel, or the lack of weather sealing, is this lens's biggest flaw. So punching all its scores into the TB photography algorithm, factoring in sharpness, aperture, price, weight, wideness, versatility, features and flaws, the 14mm f2.8 comes out with a grand score of 57.48, which jumps up again to 62.95 if you don't use it above f10. Which brings me all the way back to its lack of weather sealing. So if you're out and about taking photos, you can't get great shots when the front element of your lens, your glass, is covered in rain. So why have you got your camera, your lens out of your bag shooting those situations anyway? But the longer and longer I've been doing photography, I've been out taking, say, landscapes in the perfect conditions, even perfect weather conditions. And I'm sitting there, there's not a chance of rain in sight, and the wind changes direction. I get a little bit of spray from the waterfall that just covers my lens, or I get a bigger wave than usual and just that little bit more mist hits the front element of my lens. Or I've been out waiting for a bit of cloud to clear underneath the stars, and that little bit of condensation builds up on the lens. And it's not much. I grab my cloth, which I've always got on me, I wipe down the lens, the front elements, the body of it, and everything's fine. I get a fantastic photo. But just give it years of doing that over and over and over. That little bit of condensation, that little bit of sea spray, that little bit of waterfall mist, that little bit of rain you just caught the end of as you're taking your shot, and it all starts to build up. And that weather sealing over time really can make a big difference between having a lens forever and having a lens that you have kind of thrashed and worn out. See, it's nice to have a lens that you can resale comfortably as you want to upgrade and change your photography. Or if it's great to have a lens that you know is going to stand the test of time and be around forever, weather sealing is that feature. Just as far as those little bit harsher environments to handle that little bit more of a beating of time, that's what weather sealing is for. Resale value and endurance. But if all of that sounded a little bit too extreme, a little bit too outside your level of comfort when it comes to photography, then I feel very confident recommending the 40mm f2.8 from Fujifilm as a lens you would never regret buying. As always, guys, thank you so much for following along. If you have any questions about this lens or any other lens or anything Fujifilm or landscape photography related, please ask me down in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them for you. If you could like this video, share it with your friends, and most importantly, subscribe. It would mean the world to me. It's just that little action you've got to do to help support me do this full-time as a living. But otherwise, guys, until next time, I'll catch you next time if I can work out how to end in video. Far out.